Welcome to Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Tom Humphrey from Landscapists. Spoke with Lloyd Sharpe last week, also from Landscapists. So this week is part two with Tom. So they're both directors, along with two other directors at that company. And it was fascinating to hear really the vast array of different things that Tom did before starting with Landscapists. So he worked in maintenance to start off with, and then did a bit of remedial building work. Studied art, a bit more maintenance over in the UK, and it's just done all sorts of things, and then found himself back in New South Wales, originally being from New Zealand, and got started with Landscapers. So it was great hearing those things he was doing, and also how he appreciates that while they all weren't awesome jobs, he certainly has learned a lot from them. So it's a good lesson, and he says that in there, that it's a good lesson for young people to go and try different things. One of the things he mentioned in this chat, which resonated with me, was how they have to sometimes reset themselves and remember to respect the client's time and money, because it's not just another job that you're doing. It's actually it means a lot more than that to the client. So it's good to take stock and think of that occasionally. And also it was great hearing how through the art course that he did and studying art, he learned to accept criticism and how that's beneficial for people. So young people, especially these days, aren't that great at accepting criticism, and so it's a good skill to have if you can do that and just realize it's not personal. But he'll touch on that and more things in this chat, so hopefully you enjoy this chat with Tom Humphrey. Tom, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. So the first question I've got for you is, how did you start in the industry?
Oh man, thanks for having me on, both. It's a bit humbling to be on your setup, sort of people you have on here. But I personally got a bit of a weird not weird, but an unorthodox sort of journey into landscaping as a business. I started off, that was what I wanted to do straight out of school. Like, I left school in New Zealand in early 2000s, 2002 or something, and went to study landscape design and horticulture, which sort of started off with first qualification was in horticulture specifically, but then it had a few minor landscape design papers in there as well. That was at Wintec in Hamilton, which is, Hamilton's pretty boring sort of city, but it's pretty really good public gardens, and that course is run in the Hamilton Gardens, specifically in their they have a big veggie growing area, and that's all maintained by the students. So it was a really sort of practical course in horticulture, and particularly on public gardens and stuff as well. So it was a good way to get started. And from there I went out. I got a bit sick of that place. I didn't really gel that much with the teachers and stuff, so I sort of put that aside for a while and moved to Australia, and ended up running a big maintenance crew in Manly and Sydney's Northern Beaches, and ended up running a big public garden contract. Well, not gardens, mostly turf management, like ovals and big beaches and stuff like that, which that was pretty full on, but gives you a real good eye opener into how to run guys and how to work through sort of busy periods and that. And also, from a design perspective, it exposed you a lot to, I always bring up public gardens because I think there's a lot of good lessons to be learned from public gardens. Because particularly once you get working on a scale, maintenance becomes pretty important, and there's a lot of good lessons to learn from large-scale public gardens because they're just so well maintained with such small resource, right? So yeah, did a bit of that for a while, and then while I was in Sydney, sort of got into working in remedial building as well, which is another this is a bit of a theme of what I did, just went into a whole lot of different areas and picked up a lot of skills. So I got in that remedial building game and started building custom gates and repairing, concrete cancer and all that sort of stuff. So doing a sort of broad range of work. The guy I worked for was sort of real creative kind of dude, happy to take on anything. like a bit like you, like loves new processes, and so we try everything. Build custom aluminium gates on site, and it was really cool. So he gave me a lot of confidence. Then about that time, I went to art school in Sydney, so I did a degree in fine arts and majored in sculpture. And so sort of got away from my landscape stuff a bit there, but that sort of contributed a lot to how I operate now. So that was irreplaceable as far as all the things I've done in my life. That art school experience was pretty huge, actually. So I really, really enjoyed that. But then sort of got back into the gardens, like through trying to survive art school on the noodles and that. I ended up working for a sort of concierge service in Sydney, like sort of managing sort of wealthy families' homes and stuff around different parts of Sydney. And that was a real eye-opener in terms of landscape, because you got introduced to the top tier of private landscaping throughout the city, and you got to see the projects from start to finish through the eyes of the client, and working alongside and talking to the designers and the construction guys as well, and just seeing what was possible. Like, coming from like a small town like me, like that, to see those sorts of gardens was pretty phenomenal, and just be in them every day, you know. So that business about that time wanted to get into landscaping, and so while I was at uni still, we started up a sort of landscape maintenance arm of that business, which later on, after I left, that grew into a big landscape construction business in Sydney, and still a pretty successful landscape construction and maintenance business, sort of 20 or 30 guys or something. Yeah. So that was a real fortunate event to sort of get exposed to that, and meet guys like big time landscape designers, and see what they did from start to finish. You know, like a lot of at that time, for some reason, just a lot of our clients were using Will Dangar before when he was by himself, and just to see how he operated was pretty mind blowing, actually. Like, they did one project, the Abbey out at some sort of in the western Sydney, like this glorious old sandstone Abbey, and like I was there the first day they took it over, and the place was just like an absolute dive, man. Like, just so run down. This family, like 5 different families, have been living in there for years, and like, just to see it now, like I'll try and link you some pictures of that later on, because just that sort of showed me what could be done.
Yep. And
I was like, shit, I've got to get back in this game, you know. So that after uni and that, we headed off to Europe, me and my partner, and moved to England. And we're just lucky enough that a mate of mine that we went through horticulture college together in Hamilton. We used to write our notes on our legs and sort of to pass our plant identification tests and that. And Dave called me up. He's like, "Oh, if you're coming over, you come work with us. We're living on a sort of a big rural estate in South Oxfordshire." And I was like, "Oh, look, I kind of had my eye on the big smoke, go to London, or do something exciting." I don't know what I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking of that. But we turned up and went in and met the owners of that place, who sort of ended up sort of transforming our lives. As a bloke, Sir Martin Wood and Lady Audrey Wood, his wife. They were just like these most amazing people who'd sort of built. He was an engineer, and they'd built this amazing business called Oxford Instruments. It was one of the first sort of spin-out businesses out of the university, and they specialised mostly in making magnets for research and that. So there was like all these cool magnets around the place. But the estate that we ran was, we didn't run it, but we worked on that was 2-3 holdings locally of maybe, I don't know, maybe 100 acres at the time. It's a lot bigger now. And then at that time, only maybe 8 acres was informal gardens. but it had a really interesting breadth of garden type that we could learn from and learn about. And Martin and Audrey were and Ian, the estate manager at the time, they were really clever people at sort of getting the best out of other people. Like if you ever get a chance, I'll link you Audrey's book. Like, she wrote a really good book on how they built that business, but all of it founded around empowering people to sort of express themselves in the workplace and have ideas and contribute rather than just going in through the motions, you know. Like Audrey told us a pretty cool story about how Martin ended up in the mines during the war, and his first job was like on a drill press drilling like a hole on a piece of plate, and he was like, oh, well, I'll just do 3 at a time, speed it up, you know, 300%, and then or 200%. But then he got called at the end of the day, and he thought he was going to get sort of congratulated, you know, by the boss, and the boss was like, mate, you're causing trouble for the next guy. He can't keep up with you. No more of that, you know. So he took this lesson to always, you know, promote that individual thinking. And so he went on to build this huge business, Oxford Instruments. I think they were in Australia and, you know, everywhere. But part of it was he had sort of created this manor house estate in Oxfordshire, and we worked on it. And it also had all these other charities like Silver Foundation, which was a big sort of timber growing management and timber uses sort of charity, and all about promoting the sort of use of timber. And we got to work in and around those charities and learn about what they do, and learn more about sort of countryside stewardship and that large scale landscape management. And that was again just like another experience that just mind-blowing, how it just opens your world again to something way bigger, and you're like, oh man, there's a whole lot more going on here. Like, how do you manage these landscapes? And I loved it in Europe because it's quite different to New Zealand and Australia, where you've got this, you can see the human imprint on the land much more obviously, right? Like in Australia, it's kind of one or the other, whether you've imposed on the land heaps or it's wild, right? But in the UK, it's kind of both. So I goofed off on that, and that sort of changed my world. Sort of started seeing all those big parks, all those that were designed by those sort of famous British sort of romantic landscape designers, you know, and that, you know, again, it was sort of tied in really well with like having gone to the art school and studied art history, like National Art School where I went. So I got a real good history department, and we'd already learned about those landscape designers and stuff there. So sort of had an idea about how prolific these landscapes were, but until you go there, right, you don't know. So yeah, that was it. So I sort of back then I sort of started to know, I want to be involved in this larger scale land management, and got a taste of editing landscapes there. So like I'd had chances to design gardens for friends and family in the past, smaller stuff, but all of a sudden started to get to have an input, and because we used to have like a lot of like wildflower meadows and water meadows, and luckily, like Sam, the head gardener, used to, you know, let us have a bit of play on making decisions and putting trees in certain spots, which, you know, in this country, I mean, I come across a lot of my clients who, some of them are real gung-ho with planting trees, and others overthink it. No, I'm definitely closer to one of those sort of overthinkers when it comes to that. And like, yeah, even Martin, that boss of ours, who was a extremely smart guy, but he used to mull over tree planting a lot, like really slowly. And he always says to you, "Oh, sorry, Tom, like, you know, this is for my grandkids, so I've got to get it right." And I was like, yeah, true. Like all of a sudden you're starting to think beyond your own lifetime, and that's something I try and bring into our designs. It's hard though, because when you got a paying client, I hate trying to impose that on them, because that might not be an ideal of theirs, right? Like that's me projecting that onto them. But don't know, I still think it's important, and I try to find ways for us to work together to create a sort of holistic idea, and then work on our decision making through the design process like that. But that experience, and that sort of led us back home. And then when we got home, we sort of, a bunch of old clients from those other businesses called me up for some reason and said they needed someone to sort of look after their properties, and started doing that for a while. And then a client just asked me to move to Byron, me and Hannah to move to Byron Bay to sort of manage their property up there, like 50 or 100 acres on the beach, beautiful place just south of Byron. And I was all pretty much signed up, ready to go. And then another client said, "Oh man, I didn't know you wanted to do that. Like, I've just bought these 2 farms in Berry, just outside of Berry, at Gerringong and Gerard on the coast." And he said, "Oh, I've employed this guy, Darren Doherty, to design the farm. We need someone to sort of implement it all, like." And I was like, I hadn't heard of Darren until then. Darren's a sort of a bit of a guru in the sort of world of sort of holistic, large-scale, productive landscape design. And I say large scale, I mean broadacre farming operations that are usually producing a not a lifestyle, more like a sort of a living. So yeah, he operates. He sort of lives. I think he lives in Bendigo or something. And he's he's an amazing guy. And once I got into that world of Darren Doherty, like discovering sort of holistic management through which from the Savory Institute, Young Savory, and just going down that road of this whole productive landscape thing, I was right in there. So I got to see how Darren works, and we did that project building Robbie's farms and stuff down here and building the landscapes around their house, and met a few cool landscapers down here who were doing cool stuff. Like met Clint the first week I was here, Clint from Bamboo South Coast.
Yep.
And then later on met another couple of other pretty clever landscapers around here, and even I think I came across Lloyd about them too, early doors. But that got us to here. So it was kind of, as you could see, it's kind of like a real rolling bloody roller coaster of things. But there was always this design thing that I want to solve problems for people, and that's the nature of it, right? You're trying to solve a problem together. But I think all those experiences, I weight some of them really heavily, but they're all super valuable. And I think, like for all the guys who sort of listen to your podcast and the young guys that are who want to get ahead in the game, it's easy to get distracted and think that you need to go get to the finish line straight away. But as you can see, what I've done, it's every crap job you could be doing is teaching you something worthwhile about landscaping or being a better designer, and delivering a better product.
So how old are you now?
38. So it's been a pretty busy sort of.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, you've done a lot in a short time.
Yeah. But there's a little bit of again, I think that's fed by that impatience, right? Like jumping on to every other thing, and that's not just a good thing. That comes with a bunch of downsides as well. But I've got. It's funny that I'm like that, because all the workers in my business and other workers that I see around that I admire the most are these kind of guys who have this job and they're really good at it, and they don't try and they're not like me, not trying to pick up every skill they see. They just like, I'm good at this. Like, I love watching a good bloody brickie operate, mate. Like, it just looks effortless, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, if you gave me all those bricks, all that sand, I've been buggered. But these guys just, and I've always had that admiration for guys who just develop a really good skill and really hammer it. But that's just not me. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, and it's worked out for me pretty well. Like, and I think you're being an open sort of character that you get invited to a lot more opportunities. And I think that's been pretty beneficial to me generally. But particularly, it sort of all comes together at a certain stage, right? And all of a sudden, you start getting opportunities and you start following through with them, you start delivering good product, and that's what happens. But you know, the sort of lucky event of this business getting off the ground is similar to all those, where, you know, Paul was setting up his business with Andrew, and he was like, oh, we need, this one of his clients needed a designer, and Paul sort of knew me vaguely from town around Berry, and he asked me to do a design, and I think he pegged me up against Buddy Hodges, and Hodges did a design for the same job, and I think I pipped him, so you can tell him that. But yeah, no, that was just luck. And then I started doing a few designs for Paulie. Paulie's like, man, like, we really need to build a company here, like, so, you know, because we're all the same sort of stage in life where just had kids, and you realize you can't be hammering away by yourself forever. And it's like, you know, like each of us could be doing this business as sole traders and doing quite well in the current environment. Like, financially it'd be great, but we want to build something, I don't know, Lloyd probably went into it with you, but we want to build something with a bit of momentum and sort of self-momentum, and that gives other people opportunities to learn and grow themselves. And I think a company's sort of a good way to do that, and without shouldering too much of the burden. Like, guys like yourself just blown me away, man, to be able to do what you do by yourself. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was an employee, I used to, like, my boss would tell me he was spending the day in the office, and I used to think, I don't know how you can possibly spend a whole day in the office. What are you possibly doing in there?
You do.
And now I could spend 2 weeks in the office and still not get everything done. I've got to get done.
Yeah. It's hard to manage. Like, efficiency in the office is, because I'm like for doing it full time, I'm really, really, really new. Right? Like, I've been only sitting in an office for this last year and a half, 2 years. Like, I'm so inefficient, and I know it. So I'm trying to develop systems or you know, use other people well, and that I'm pretty lucky where Paul's wife Jess, she runs the office here, and I can sort of lean on her for everything. And even though she's got more than enough jobs, I sort of use her as an assistant. And it's good though, because, you know, you was like seeing her learn more than just, because all the stuff she does within the business is stuff that sort of any semi-skilled sort of business person could do. But now she's actually learning how we build, what the type of landscape we're trying to build, and what it takes, and a lot of the stuff that's quite specific to our area as well. And I think we're really lucky to have her in that position where she's growing and she's learning, and it's good for me too, because like, one of my enjoyments in business, and I loved, and when I was just a sole trader, like, I loved having time to work with people and train them a little bit. And I'm not saying Jess needs much training, but in the landscape stuff I can teach her a fair bit, and particularly to do with plants and horticulture. That's really cool, because I don't have time to be out with the maintenance guys and teach them stuff. We're lucky we've got a pretty good guy who heads them up, and, you know, Lloyd's out there teaching his crew and sort of molding them. And you get a bit jealous of that sitting inside the office, and this box gets pretty warm in summer, and you want to get out there. So, but I mix it up every now and then. I'll design something in that only I can do, so I'll be able to get out there and show them the boss is still there, you know. So,
that's smart.
Yeah, it's funny, eh? Like, you know, it's cool though. Like, and you get to experience too, when you design stuff in that you wanted to do, or that you've got a system that you can do it better, and maybe people have done it before, and that's what we do. The problem is, then what you got to do is, then once you've figured that out, you've got to then do that element again a lot, which we often forget. Like, oh, okay, I've done that element, move on.
Yeah.
But you never make money on it the first time, so you should really go, okay, we'll narrow the system, let's do it some more, but make it profitable.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a funny one for us.
Yeah, there's things that I've done like that, and then gradually taught my guys how to do it, and now they're sort of proficient in it as well. So
masters, mate.
Yeah. So
yeah, some guys I love, like some guys seeing them pick things up. Like we had one apprentice who, unfortunately, is not with us anymore, but he picked up steel edging just like really well, and particularly the way I like to do things. And I'll be like, I sort of I change that, and just little junctions, the way we do things a lot. And Jake, he was like bang, picked it up, and then started coming up with better ideas straight away. And I was like, man, like this is awesome. Like you're away, like you're making that's a profitable thing that we do, and you're really good at it, and you enjoy it. Like he's happy to do it day on, day in, day out. And yeah, that was awesome. I loved seeing that. So some of the little clever things he came up with, I was just like, man, like I'd done a little drawing for you guys, and you made it better. I'll send you a picture of one thing. It was so clever. I loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just in case anyone hasn't listened to Lloyd's episode, so you're the landscapers, so you're business partners with 3 other guys. So Lloyd does construction, and is it Paul who does the excavation, and Andrew's?
Yeah, Paul's background, he's a little bit like me. He's got a real super varied background, but he's always been here in Berry. So super knows bloody everyone. It's quite annoying. Like I'll go, it's a new job. I just met a new client up Strong's Road, beautiful property. He's like, oh yeah, I know that property. He goes off on the stories, But that's super helpful, right? Because like everyone's like, man, I need to do this, and he's like, oh, I know this guy. And because I always, I thought we were kind of isolated going here for a lot of things, which we are for some things, right? Like plants, we're a little bit isolated. That's why Clint does so well, because we're kind of isolated. Timber, we're a little bit isolated, and other things, but steel, obviously, a lot being down the road from Illawarra, we're pretty good for, but we are isolated. But Paul, yeah, he's like a little bit like me, where he's done loads of things, but always around the area. Winemaking is one of his things that he's done. He's built and worked on a lot of the local vineyards and that. And he's a bloody good machine operator, which that's awesome, but we don't want him on a machine really. So we need other good machine operators. So we're a little bit stuck in his phase of where he really needs to be running jobs more and not on the machine as much. But it's really hard when you've got like someone who's that good an operator, particularly if we mostly only do our small excavation. We outsource our larger stuff. So we try and, because it's really efficient for us to move a small machine around. And we're in a really mountainous area. Like this is a rainforest area. So getting big machines around is a little bit painful. So we prefer to operate with a small machine, and Paul is just an amazing operator, and he does all our all our excavation, drainage, and he's really good with irrigation as well, which is good. But then again, it's a little bit of one of those things where you'd rather find a really good subby for, probably, I think, and just not have to, and then set up a maintenance program with the subby and just wash your hands a little bit, because it can chew up a lot of time and for not much gain. I mean, the gain in the long term is really good, because you're going to get a good product out of your plants. It's hard to talk about bloody irrigation with clients at the moment, because it's rained every day for the last 90 or something. But before that, we were in the sort of the fire season, so it's been pretty hardcore. But the other guy involved is Andrew, who's his back. Did Lloyd go into that with you?
Not a lot, nah.
Oh yeah. So Andrew's background, Andrew's a bit older. He kind of already made his money in the in sort of rag trade kind of thing, and he had a place up the hill, and he'd been using Paul to do all these little landscaping projects. And I think he's just got the bug big time, eh? Like he was up there building all sorts of stuff, man. But he's got a good eye too, because he designed a really cool pond and big, really sort of big formal pond and beautiful garden up at his place. And so he's pretty handy. So, but he's got a lot of experience in starting up businesses, and so he's pretty helpful in that regard when you can all get a bit flustered and worry about things. You know, I've been a bit worried lately, and we had a meeting yesterday, and Andrew was like, "Oh, this is tracking really well," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So having someone a bit older in that sense has probably been a bit valuable, and also he does a lot of sort of early client liaison stuff with me, which you know, like, you know, I like to think I know what I'm doing and I've got a good eye, but it's, you just never know when someone's going to have a gem of a bloody idea or something. And Andrew's one of those ones, is he'll pick up on something particularly on bigger jobs, and it's like, shit, yeah, it's not bad, mate. Like, so I find that super valuable. It's a nice dynamic having multiple people at those early meetings too. He's good like that, and because he's been through the process of building a house up here, you know, in the mountain, and he's got a good perspective for the client. So he can really teach all of us how the client feels, and that's pretty useful, because, like I said, we as a business together, we're quite young, so having that, keep switching back on to thinking through the client's eyes a little bit, like not too much. You can definitely think through the client's eyes too much, and I do that sometimes, but it's super valuable. So Andrew's, he's good. It's a nice crew. It's you know, yeah, it just sucks. The example I often give to people is like, just sometimes on a Friday, if you're stressing out about something, you just call one of the other guys and just talk it through, and whether you solve the problem or not doesn't matter. It's just, you sort of, share it in half sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. I think we're pretty lucky.
Yeah, I've spoken about partnerships a fair bit the last month or so, and the variance of your skill set sounds like it works perfectly. And one of the questions I was going to ask was if there was someone who's got a lot of business experience. So is that probably Andrew?
Andrew does fill that in, and Jess. So Jess, even though Jess is really young, but she's had a lot of experience with businesses in their early growth phase, and so she's very savvy, and she's got a good way of, like, we report a lot, like, so we report on jobs, and almost daily, really, but weekly essentially, and then we report on the business pretty frequently. Like, we meet weekly, so yeah, which is important. Like, it's stuff that personally, I was like, speaking another language, but yeah, you're sort of learning it all on the run. But there's definitely there is still, like, it's easy to speak all the glowing things about a big partnership like that, or like a 4-way partnership like that. There's definitely pitfalls as well that make life hard, and you know, some clients get pretty good at sort of using the scenario against you if they're clever enough. So you'll often end up you're doing the odd thing for free at the end of the job, because they're like, oh, but you know, Lloyd said this. Yeah. And it's like, oh shit. There we go. So that's one thing, but there's all sorts of other ways we trip ourselves up. But it's a work in progress, eh?
yeah. Whether that, talking about the clients doing that, something I say to any staff I have on is, if the client asks you to do something, just tell them to ask me. Otherwise, you can pay for it if I haven't.
Oh yeah,
okay.
You can pick up the tab, mate. Yeah, it's a tricky one, like, because I try to foster in our guys good habits and good ways of talking to clients, and some guys get it really well. But you're right, that's the downside of that, right? Like, the upside is, like, particularly in the maintenance, is maintenance is okay because mostly it's hourly. So if the client wants to do something, knock yourself out. But the downside is they don't get around to doing all this stuff because they get trapped at places. But those are great for us because when one of our guys is really good at dealing with clients, and like there's clients that he deals with that they don't talk to me anymore. So it's like, I go up there and check on them, and I'll see the gardens because I love their gardens and seeing them change, and we go and chat. But mostly for all the stuff they need, they don't come to me. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
But we're finding also we've had a bit of a run with really good clients, but a lot of older clients recently, and we've done some cool work with them, man. But they're pretty good at forgetting stuff that you said. That suits them. So we've been tripped up a bit lately. So I keep saying to Lloyd, I was like, bro, get it in a text or an email.
Yeah,
that's fine. I'll do it. So, you got to create methods and ways or systems, because like your system's great. The handful of guys under you come talk to me. But once you get a little bit more time poor, that's when it gets hard, right? I mean, I imagine you're probably pretty time poor already, but it's definitely a challenge. Like I say, systems are the best way to go. Create some sort of system where the client goes through. But I don't know. When I talk to Raoul and that, he always says that clients love rules, but I find some of them do and some of them don't.
Yeah.
Even the ones that seem like they do love the rules and parameters you give them, they'll break them when it's just.
Yeah.
But, I love that. I love the challenge with clients like that. Like sometimes it gets to you, but most of the time it's pretty funny.
Yeah, they like the rules that works out well for them, but they don't like the ones that don't.
Yeah, it's funny. We spend a lot of time talking about clients, and it's easy to, and actually that's another real pitfall of being in a partnership or a group is we do it every now and then, and it pisses me off a little bit. Like it's easy to go and to let the client become the enemy a little bit, because you're going, oh bloody hell, he's changed this and he's changed that, and then because you're there feeding each other in your heads, there's like they're the enemy. It's like you've got to have this reset every now and then. You go, hey, without him, we're sitting at home eating biscuits, man. Like, what have you done? So that's a real trap where when you're the one, and I know when it's just you, that sort of doesn't happen as easily because you've got to front up to the client. It's just you and them, and you don't seem to see them as the enemy as easily. It's something that we've had almost tripped ourselves up on a few times, and then at the end of the day, man, like they pay the bills, and yeah. I mean, if I come back to design, like they're everything. Like the client is the idea. They're the ones who are going to trust you that your idea that you've got is worth doing and spending a lot of money on, because nothing's cheap now. So you've got to really sort of keep putting that client up there, but have rules and systems that mean that everything's covered and you don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, I haven't done it recently, but I know exactly what you're saying. I need to reset every now and then as well, because you just start to think of their their job as just a job that you just got to get done. You don't think of them as a person who's could be having their dream garden done, or you've got to take a bit of deep breath and relax.
Because at the end of the day, they've gone out, they've left their home, found you, and gone, what can we do? And you come up with an idea, and they go, okay, how much? This much. And they're like, okay, they get the money and give it to you. And that's a lot of faith, and it's easy to forget it. But it's powerful to remember it, and Andrew's pretty good at reminding us. So Andrew's like doesn't matter how big or small the job is, he's sort of prioritising. Sometimes it feels like he prioritised the tiniest ones the most. But that's just you didn't hear it from me.
Do you have any other designers in the office or plans to have any others?
No, we don't, and it's our bottleneck at the moment. So it puts a lot of pressure on me because it's not just the design that goes through me in our business; it's kind of everything. So there's not a lot that happens in the business that doesn't sort of funnel through me, and that's our fault. We've just accidentally let the business build like that.
Yep.
So a big part of this year for me, and it's something that I should have been doing already, but it's one of those silly things where you just, I'm too busy to call up a designer and start working on a relationship to work as a subby or whatever, I'm too busy. It's like, I don't know, if you ever had that quadrant that they do of like important, not important, urgent, not urgent, it's like I'm always in the wrong, you've got to be in the right quadrant of that, and I'm always in the not important, urgent one.
Yeah,
So,
I haven't heard of it, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a powerful idea, but you got to implement it. And that would be that's something we have to do quickly, because I not only am I sort of getting stuck on it and I'm busy elsewhere, I'm quite slow at that process as well, particularly on designs that maybe when a client just wants a design and they don't want us to do it, so they want a design and they probably want a bit of detail as well, and it's like, well, we're much better off working on that sort of design construct model, and that's what we want to narrow to a lot more, is where and go through the process of, hey, we'll do your concept, and it's a really loose concept, but it's going to be bloody exciting, and then are you on board? And then we go through if they want to go through the draft process and tender it out, then we hand it over to our drafting subby or whatever and produce that. Or we just go through pricing and building it the way we would build it. And that's probably going to become more and more important now, because we do really good designs, and we muck around, and a lot of people really do appreciate a real pretty sort of product out of a design. Some people, you can just give them something really brief and they love it and they get the idea, but other people love that. They like to get something pretty and beautiful, and we do that. You're fortunately having all that background and drafting and drawing and stuff like that. I'm pretty lucky there. I think there's way more value in for our business, and for me to be just doing that loose concept, client management, this is the idea, but then having someone to back up. And I'm quickly finding that at the moment I'm drowning in it and not really getting the work done. And that's worse than not doing the job at all. You know what I mean? Like, I think the girl you had on recently, Mon, what's her last name?
Palmer.
Yeah, she said something about it. Like, she said the client just needs an outcome, and I'm finding we're getting a bunch of clients at the moment that they're not really that fussed about what the outcome is. They just want something, and it's like, I just want to quote in my hands. Like, we had this guy ring like 7 times today. He just wanted something. I was like, man, like, you only told me about this a few days ago, but it's fair enough. Like, he's got the bug, right? We've done a bunch of jobs there, and now he's like, what else can I do? And they just want something. And I think that was pretty poignant the way she said that, because just give them something. And that's what Andrew's really good at pushing for. Like, he's always like bad at me, like, have you called that client? Have you called that client? So now we have a system where I'll just make a sort of call list on Fridays, and I just touch base with those design clients and keep those fires burning. And I think it's good for me and it's good for them. But you're right, like that's a massive bottleneck for us, and I'd love to start finding whether we go in-house and have someone work here with us. I think there's a lot of things I like about that, because I do want to narrow our focus to that design construct, and we also want to have a bit of a language of landscapists, what our designs look like a little bit, because it's hard. We're only 3 years into our business together, so it's hard to sort of have recognizable gardens of our own. But I would like that, and that's what I want to like. I think in terms of my ambition personally, I'd love for people to see gardens that I've made or we've made and know those gardens years from now. Perhaps beyond my lifetime, hopefully. And I think that was a big interest in why I got it, why I like this landscaping a lot.
Where did the name Landscapists come from?
That was the key. I think his principle was quite simple, and that was he wanted something, no matter what, he wanted something that had the name of what you do in the title, and I had misgivings about it, and I brought those up, but I think he was right. Like, people see us and they know what we do the second they see us, and we have. But there's loads of really good landscapers in our area. Like when there's plenty of good landscapers that have a similar output or capability to us. Some do some things slightly better and vice versa, but we're by far the most visible. Like, and that just happened because I was like, we need another guy, we need another ute, we need another guy, we need another truck, we need another guy. Machine. It's like kind of like a hospital or an alien just growing, But that name is good like that, isn't it? And people know what you do the second they see your shirt. So yeah, we get a lot of work sitting outside the coffee shop talking to Hodges, and it's pretty useful, man. Like,
yeah, I reckon it's really important early days, your logo and your name, and then once you build your reputation, it's not as important. I look at my logo and think it's just the worst looking logo I've ever seen. It looks like it's from the 80s. Like, I didn't design it, but same with the name. Like, we don't do gardens, like, we're landscapers, so it's made me realise it's not as important once you establish. But early days,
that reality. Yeah, the reality is it's not. Like, you could, if you're willing to spend the time, and if you've got the talent to go out there and market yourself really well anyway, and marketing yourself is a sort of constant thing in my mind, and that's a little bit. I got to sort of learn that a little bit in art school, right? Because you are your marketing machine in that art world. Like, I started going down that route after art school and trying to promote yourself a little bit, and you've got to develop that. And it's a little bit, you got to, it takes a long time. Some people mature really quickly, and they get really good at promoting themselves or growing in a community really well. I was a bit of a slow burner, but now I'm really good at growing, sort of marketing myself as someone you want to trust and you want to talk to, and that's a part of that, I think. And like I said, I think art school was super valuable in that regard. It's also really, I'll go off track a bit here, but the other thing about art school that I sort of felt was really, really worthwhile was that you got used to this sort of critiquing process, which is, and I think that would be something that young designers coming through now will be particularly poor at, and I notice it with our young workers. They don't like being critiqued at all. And art school was just a process of like, I've done art my whole life. Like, I'm a really good drawer, blah, blah, blah. And you do this drawing, whatever, and put it up in front of the class. And then there's this critiquing process. And it didn't just teach you to not be thick-skinned, but to take those point of views and listen and learn. But it also gave you this sort of language to sort of talk about problems in landscape. So I spend a lot of time in gardens now telling people how nice their garden is, right? Because most of the garden, because we work on big scale a lot, because we're in a rural environment, we a lot of our gardens are already pretty established, and there's something gone on there for the last 70 or 100 years, whatever. And then there's also the landscape beyond that, that is the existing native landscape that's probably recovering from logging or whatever. So there's already an active kind of landscape editing that's been going on a long time. And I spend a lot of time now complimenting people on their garden that they want me to take apart or something, you know. So yeah, I think that sort of critiquing process that we went through at art school was super powerful. And I'd encourage anyone to, like, particularly like I said, that generationally, the young people coming through today, to me, my perception is that they seem a little bit more defensive about their abilities, and they think that when you say, oh, you don't do this well at the moment, they take that as a real shot, and they shut off. And I used to do it, and I still do it a lot with my wife, but I should probably tell you the same thing. Like when she tells me something bad at, I'm like, yeah, it's a wall, right? And so these guys do the same thing, man. I'm like, all I did was say, I don't like the way you do this. I find a better way. I'm still leaving it in your court, but they do get quite defensive. And there's obviously exceptions to the rule, and there'll be young guys coming through that just bounce from, you know, mistake to mistake and just keep getting better. But I think that defensiveness, that a lot of young guys coming into this industry could really benefit from letting it go and challenging themselves and learning how to resolve problems. And you might have this awesome idea with a client, and then it just might not work out to be right, and then the client might push you somewhere, and if you're not open, you won't see that. Like, we've had some of the best things we've done in design, and one of the greatest things I ever did was change something last minute that a client just threw in. And I was like, this is way out of left field, but okay. And if I'd have been too stuck on my design, it wouldn't have happened. And now I still see it as one of the most successful gardens we've done. You know, so yeah, I think that's super important, man, that being able to accept critique. And I'd love for everyone to be able to go to art school and experience that. It's like standing up naked in front of a crowd, man. Like, this is my work. What do you guys think? You know, I only went a little bit down. I don't know what they do in terms of, you know, in landscape architecture firms or education. They probably go through that process a lot as well. So that would be positive. But I'm still defensive about my stuff today. When a client poo-hoos something, sometimes I get a bit up. But yeah, I think to be open is way more powerful. And be happy to change.
Yeah, something I learned when I was when I designed and built a couple of gardens at the Melbourne Flower and Garden Show. We're standing out the front of it and listening to people walking past. You learn that there's people who love to death what you do, and there's people who think it's the worst thing in the world, like that it should be ripped down straight away.
No, it's like, yeah, it shouldn't offend you at all.
Yeah, it does. It can't, because not everyone's got the same tastes. Not everyone in the world is the same person.
Yeah. It's super liberating though. As you grow older and you start to go, you know, I can't be everything for everybody, and that's a part of this being in partnership. How we are is we've come to really enjoy not trying to be everything for a client, because we've all done that and drown in it. We, like, Paul still takes calls from clients who might have put a irrigation system in like 6 years ago for, you know, and maybe out there fixing a trough or whatever, I don't know. And I still do it. I'm still solving problems for clients from years ago and not getting paid for it or whatever. But once you set up a company with these processes, that you're a little bit more guarded from that. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but yeah, it's fun.
And going back to your art side of things, I had a quick look on your website, tjhumphrey.com, and saw a piece that you did called, I think it's One Oak Robot, or was oak?
Oh, yeah,
anyway?
yeah.
That looked amazing.
That was, cheers, bro. That was with that silver foundation through for my old boss's charity in England. That was really lucky experience. So there was that silver foundation. They started that project before I moved there, and how it worked was the local lord, whatever, I can't remember what the house was. Beautiful house in South Oxfordshire there, where Churchill was born. And the Lord gave us a really sort of not a beautiful oak tree. It was a bit of a weird, funny sort of shape. And the project was to sort of, again, along the lines of that charity, was to sort of promote silviculture and the management of forests and the use of their products. So Gabriel had the idea to have this One Oak project and show how much can be made from one oak tree. And it was just astonishing, like so they felled it one day with all these kids, and then we went back a year later and replanted, maybe 200 oaks in the same area. The first job Gabriel got me to do was when it came back it got sent away to some science lab to get dated, and he gave me a disc from the bottom and wanted me to sort of clean it up and present it. I just varnished it, sanded it and varnished it so we could present it and show kids how old the tree was and show them where events occurred in the tree's life. The tree, it wasn't that old an oak. It was only 220. I think I counted it to 222 or something.
Oh, is that all?
It was like it was like 220. But but oaks, oaks are a special tree. Like there's a tree that I've got a lot of reverence for, particularly after living in England and seeing how amazing they are and what a important tree they are in the ecosystem there. So it was a cool project, and they made some amazing stuff. Guys made this furniture and everything. They did loads of things. There was a local posh restaurant that was smoking trout in the stuff, but I got the stuff they gave me was what's last left over stuff when you mill up a slab like that, you call it slab wood. It's just all the stuff on the outside, so it's really soft, sort of cadmium, it rots really quickly. It's no good for timber. But they were like, "Oh, we made this robot," and I was like, "Oh yeah, no, we'll call it Quercus rober," like all those names that they had for the Decepticons and that. What's it called? Transformers.
Yeah.
I was like Quercus rober and Quercus robot. I thought that was real clever, but then Gabriel said, "Oh, no one will get it, mate." But I made a steel armature, just welded up a steel armature, and we were pretty strict on rules out at the manor house, so I wasn't allowed to chainsaw it up because I didn't have the ticket. But luckily, Martin's grandson, Chris, was just an absolute revhead, just loves anything to do with machines. So he was only about 16 or 17 at the time. He's now the manager of that estate, but he had his chainsaw ticket, so he did all the cutting for me, and then did the rest on a bit of it on the bandsaw and that. It was bloody cool. I think I did a quick drawing of it, sort of bursting out of the ground. We never got around to. I was gonna peg it in to the lawn and then cut turf rolls so it looked like it was breaking through the turf.
Yeah.
But because it only got exhibited at these real posh gardens, and I was like, "Oh, I don't really want to dig up these gardens." They're super posh. But it travelled around the whole of the UK, man. I went up to Scotland, and we're still there somewhere. And they've got a big facility there where people get to have a sort of workspace for woodworking and that. Just that's such a cool charity, and just they do amazing stuff. I was pretty lucky to be involved in that. That was cool. I love working with wood. There's a lot of really clever people around our area that work with wood, but I'm sort of more interested in planning out plantings and trying to find ways of integrating sort of grown wood grown for timber grown for harvest in this area. I think there's scope for integrating that into our farm landscapes here and our sort of larger private landscapes as well. So I'm sort of keen on pushing that. I'm trying to get involved. I've been lucky to design help design a couple of farms locally where people wanted to move away from just set stocking some cold dairy cows or something like that to having a more integrated thing, and that's where learning all that stuff off Darren Doherty, and that was pretty useful. So I try and integrate some of that into what we do, and clients are often really interested in, even if they're not willing to, because it's quite a commitment, 25 years, whatever, to grow something like that. But if clients are interested, we just talk about it, right? And then all of a sudden you got this sort of rapport with the client about something, whether they do it or not. It's not that crucial, I'm a big fan of, there's a guy who designs a lot of this, who does a lot of this integrated forestry landscape design and management down your way, sort of a guy called Rowan Reed. He's got a farm, wouldn't be too far from you, he's like an hour from you maybe. Yeah. But he does farm tours, and that he's got a fantastic book, Heartwood or something, all about all the types of timber he grows on his farm and integrated with livestock. But that sort of holistic approach, whether you do it or not, learning that holistic approach is really useful for design anyway. I think like I did that holistic management with Alan Save with the Savory Institute, and I think it's great for creating a context with the client, learning what context the client wants to live in this, and what this house represents or this property, and then making your design decisions from there, and do those things lead towards that sort of goal or not. And I think it's super useful. So I love those sort of going down those sort of rabbit holes. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I reckon that sort of thought process is becoming a lot more popular, and will only continue to do so as well.
Yeah, because you get, it's a collective decision-making process, right? And you got to find a way that you can make decisions on behalf of this client, but still represent that context or idea that they have. And that applies equally to a courtyard as it does to a broadacre of farm design. Yeah, so that's why I still spend a lot of time listening and following those guys like Darren Doherty and Byron Joel in Western Australia, that design those productive landscapes, because I think in the future we're going to have to probably have a more integrated landscape management where we're not like forestry and these sort of things and farming are all going to have to sort of become one, because it's weird how we have this block of land here is for trees that we cut down, and we cut them all down, and then right next door this is a dairy farm that's just grass forever. It's like, where in nature do you see that, right? Like just these two systems right next to each other. So I like to spend a lot of time thinking about that, and I think it fuels, if nothing else, it's something interesting to talk about with clients, and clients they like you to know that you're thoughtful. Yeah. And so if there's nothing else from it, that's useful, I reckon. I might be mad, but
all artists are there. All the good ones.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because that's another thing that I think has been super helpful in design, is like I think I already had a bit of a skill for it as a young kid, because I grew up in the town I grew up in. It's a nice town. It's a tourist town essentially, so it's kind of had nice gardens and that, but kind of rough town as well. Like a fair bit of poverty around, and so you go through public school system there. You get fairly exposed to a lot of different people, and I've always thought, I think I recognised this really early, that was super valuable. Like once I left Rotorua, everywhere I went, you always got picked as the captain for everything, even though I was never the best footy player in any team I played in. Always the captain, because you sort of had a way with all types of people, right? And I think that's continued further on. And then art school was like this whole nother level, because go to art school, first of all, pretty much the only, like, there would have been maybe 5% men there, maybe 8%. And then of those, I was basically the only, like, probably the only straight guy. So you all of a sudden you were hanging out with people you didn't usually hang out with. So you sort of, you got to know how to hang out and talk with a lot of different people from, and art school, national art school is a little bit different to a lot of the universities in that they accept a hell of a lot of older students as well. So talking to older people. And I think that's probably my single best asset, is the ability to communicate with a broad range of people and quickly assimilate with a family dynamic and talk to them about what they want and be genuine and learn about what they want in a garden or a landscape and do that. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that's valuable too. So I'm advocating for my kids at the moment to stay in the public school system, and whether or not that'll probably just be dictated by my finances anyway, but you know, we'll see how we go.
Actually, one more question I had for you, which I forgot to ask Lloyd until we'd stopped recording, was how many staff you've got?
We've just lost a couple out of the lands. We've been really good at retaining. We just lost a couple out of maintenance. I think the weather might have just put a few people off. But I think we're probably at about 13 full-time employees, or maybe we were 14, but maybe 2 guys are on casual, so about 12 full-time employees.
Yeah.
And then we don't do we don't sub out a lot of stuff at the moment, just because it's hard to start subbing out at the moment because builders are so busy. So a lot of those, it's hard to attract a subby to take a risk to say no to a builder and come and do work for you. So we find full-time employees give us that security, and we've been fortunate so far, and pretty much all of those guys have sort of bought into the idea of what we're doing, and we give back. Like we look after them. We think we look after them really well, and we do all the right things. We pay everything, you know, everything's paid accurately, and we think that the guys, they value that and they give it in return. So we've been pretty happy with the staff we've got so far, but it's we know that there's a challenge going forward and finding the right people, but becoming a good business and being seen in the community, or even on like social media and stuff, that people see what you do and the good work you do, and you slowly become attractive as a workplace, and people start approaching you. And we've experienced that a little bit in the last 6-8 months. So, which
must
begin
be
to start solving that little problem. Yeah, Lloyd doing all his TikTok videos. Yeah, probably get all these people calling us from overseas. Yeah, no, but I think we do try and make it enjoyable. Like at the same time, we're all we get grumpy every now and then, and the boys learn about it. But I think everyone's reasonably happy. So yeah, I think that I think that's a pretty sustainable number of staff. It's hard, and you possibly need one more people manager in there somewhere, or job manager.
Yep.
But we're working on that. Then I think, and just to get your processes a bit better, but I think it's a reasonably sustainable number of staff or size for us in our particular context right now. We could, if we wanted to, grow that maintenance side exponentially. Like if I really wanted to go out there tomorrow and sell maintenance, we could have 15 staff there, but you got to buy all the utes, and it's a nightmare. So and I want to keep those clients happy, and it's hard enough to keep our current clients happy with the weather that we've had and trying to get things looking good, because you're just treading water a little bit in a season like this. Just everywhere you go, you probably make more of a mess than you clean up. So
literally treading water.
Yeah, man. I think it's a pretty sustainable number. I think we'll sort of hover around there maybe. But like you said, you pointed out, I probably need more staff in my part of the business, yeah. Or have a really good subby system or something. You know?
Oh, Tom, thank you so much for giving up your time. Like, I'm spewing I didn't know about you guys when I came from a road trip at the start, because I would have loved to catch up with you and Lloyd.
Yeah, no, we're always keen for a catch up. You know, like you see those boys, they never stop trying to have a good time. they're always vibing, as he says. So you know, we have a good cat around here. But no, if we're ever down your way, I'll bloody harass you. That's for sure, man.
Absolutely.
But no, we're really grateful you had us on, man, because I think like a big part of what we want to do as a business is help our younger guys in our business and help young guys in this area learn a skill, and if we can contribute slightly to what you're doing, I think you're kind of bringing the whole industry up a little bit, you know, which I think is worthwhile, and people see the value in it. So I'm bloody grateful, mate. I'm really grateful.